Boys and girls, we finally enter the timeline where day 1 equals day 3, because we obviously had the pack opening and then we had all the changes talked about yesterday. And today, it's finally time to take a look at the day 1 decks of the new things in G Set 1. It really does feel good to say that we're back to the right timeline. Like, I literally started playing Zero. Like, to me, I started Zero with, you know, a timer on it. I literally just put a timer on. It was like the timer until G. The timer until G is all that matters, because this is my favorite era. And of course, we built all the decks. So let's talk about it. First things first, the deck that I use for the most part in ranked right now, which I feel most confident in, is Gear Chronicles. So of course, the 24th clan. At long last, we now have all 24 clans in Zero. It really took a while, but this is Gear Chronicles. So this isn't a deck and fight, so I'm going to keep it quite brief. Essentially, we play 4 heals, 4 crits, because the heals are a defensive option. The crits help us cycle and build up soul. We use the soul a lot in this deck, so they're pretty good just to, like, you know, give us that extra power as well to get over the defensive heals. Then, of course, Chronojet is the main Vanguard. Has a strong GB2 that nullifies, well, that doesn't nullify, but asks for a grade 3 when your opponent with PG. And on top of that, when you stride, you can put one of your opponent's rear guards to the bottom of the deck, so you can get rid of the intercepts like that. We run 4 counter charges because you do counterblast quite a lot in this deck, and then we have a bunch of great, like, guard restricts. So this one doesn't let your opponent guard with grade 0s, so this way they can only PG against her. And then this one also does the same, but for Soul Blast. We have 5 guard restricts, 4 of the grade 2, the Glimmer Breath, that lets you, like, put something to the bottom of the deck of your opponent's field. 3 of this guy, who's a counter charger. When you put something to the bottom of the deck of the opponent's rear guards, Soul Blast 1, counter charge 1. It's pretty good. And then 2 of the GG, Soul Blast 2, draw a card, and then use something like Fate Rider to put her back to deck and, like, Time Leap it. It's pretty good. Time Leap means you basically search for a card with a higher grade, but we'll talk about that later. 4 Strike Fodders / Chronojet Searchers, which are really, really good. And of course, 4 of the Countercharge PG, which is very nice. The best starter, I think, is the Gunner Gear Draco Kid, because it just gives you stride costs after turn 3 or 4, which is, I think, pretty good. And then, of course, for the strides, I'm running a pretty whaley lineup. Of course, 4 Ragnarclock. You don't need 4, I think you can get away with 2 pretty easily, but he says when you attack the Vanguard, count +1, G Persona Blast, so it flips another copy, and then your opponent can't guard with grade 0s, and if you have 2 or more copies of 2 or more G units, face up in your G zone, you get a crit, and you also choose an opponent's rear and put it to the bottom of the deck. So that is very nice, and so it's just a good finisher overall. We have 4 different first stride options. Fate Rider lets you choose a rear guard, put it to the bottom of the deck, and then search your deck for a card with 1 grade higher than that card, call it, and then you choose your units for every face-up G unit you have in your G zone and give it +3k. So this is nice because you can, like, target a grade 1 to make it into an intercept, or you can target a grade 0 to make it into a booster and things like that. So Fate Rider is like a nice first stride at times. If your opponent doesn't have any intercepts and has like a full board, for example, you can go for Chronos Command, which says when it hits the Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, counter blast 2, and just put your opponent's entire board, all of their rear guards, to the bottom of the deck, which is a nice ability, but it's pretty rare, so don't use it that much. Then this guy is, when he hits the Vanguard, you bottom deck one of your opponent's spears, so it's just nice on hit. And then of course, Mystery Flare Dragon. If he hits the Vanguard, you can counterblast 4, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. If they all have different grades, then you gain 1 extra turn, but if you don't have 3 different grades in the top 3, you countercharge 4. This actually goes off way more than you expect. Like, I've actually pulled this off so often, where you stride into this first stride, take your opponent to 4, hit it, get the skill off, go into Ragnarclock, and then just kill them the same turn. So it's pretty good. I like the card is pretty good because you just have these weird ass ratios in Zero, which kind of helps, you know. So of course, also, like, having both grade 3s and grade 0s helps a lot too. So that's Gear Chronicle. Mess around with it, it's very fun. Altmile has also really impressed me. Altmile feels super, super good right now. Altmile himself has a GB2, which gives your front row units +5k power, and when you stride, you can call 2 cards from your hand, and then for that turn, choose 2 of your units and give them +5k power. And then you can choose a grade 2 from your drop zone, put it to the bottom of the deck, so you can keep recycling them. So it's very grade 2 heavy. Let's just say like that, right? Triggers are the same as the Gear Chronicle deck. Then, of course, 4 Stride Fodders / Altmile Searchers. I played the Soul Blast guy because, like, you do Soul Blast here and there, but the extra draw can really help sometimes. So I find this card pretty good for now, but I might put up the Count of Peer, Pierre says GB1 once per turn. When your grade 2 rearguard is placed, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or higher ult mile, for that turn, all rearguards in this column, himself included, get plus 2k power. So it's a pretty nice way to just buff up your columns. So I might actually put this up to 3 and actually reduce this to 2. But yes, of course, the deck for ult mile is focused on the grade 2s, which for 0 is a blessing, right? We have Knight of Twin Sword. When he's boosted and he attacks the Vanguard, you can count +1 if you're on GB1 and search your deck for grade 2 that isn't him and call it. You can call something like this, like the Starlight Trumpeter. When placed, count +1, soul +1, search your deck for something that isn't Starlight Trumpeter but is a grade 2 and call it. So you can basically just change it to more grade 2s. You can call Blaster Blade Spirit because he's a counterblast 1 when placed from deck, counterblast 1, pop an opponent's grade 2 or higher rearguard. So you get rid of intercepts, which is really nice. And then finally, we also have the Knight of Fragment, who's GB1. If you have 2 or more grade 2 rearguards, gain 2k, and the skill that when he hits the opponent's Vanguard, countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. So that is very nice. Very, very nice. The grade 2s are super good in this deck, and the strides are also really not that bad. Gablade, if it hits the Vanguard, lets you call a grade 2 from your deck, so you can call something like a... Like, you can basically, like, attack unboosted with your existing front row, then call a Knight of Twin Sword, and attack with a Twin Sword, use a skill to search your deck for a Starlight Trumpeter, which calls the Starlight Trumpeter, and then you can basically, like, call something else off of that. Some people play Tech Gull, you know, which is a grade 2 that can boost, so if you want to, like I feel, I really like this grade 2 lineup, so maybe I would, like, reduce one of these maybe or something like that, but it's kind of hard to make space right now, honestly. And then we also have the Saint Blow, which is for now a 4 of, might go down to a 2 of later on, but he did get a really nice buff, which says when he attacks, you G Persona Blast, and then for that battle, for each of your rearguards gains plus 3k power, and if you have 2 or more face-up cards in your G-Zone, he gains a crit. And then, until the end of the next turn, all of your grade 2 rearguards gain the following ability: this card cannot be retired by your opponent's effects. So it gives retire protection to Royals, which is really good for your intercepts, so I think it's quite good. And then we play one Samuel, who is when he attacks the Vanguard, if your opponent has 4 less damage, and if you have exactly 5 rearguards, count +1, deal 1 damage to the opponent's Vanguard. But the trigger effects do activate, so also a good first stride option, like either Gablade or the Samuel is a good first stride, and then after that you try to finish the game with the Saint Blow, which is pretty cool. But let's continue and take a look at, of course, Blademaster. So I don't have the Mamoru skin just yet, that's coming soon. For Blademaster, it feels like the least best, I guess, from the new ones, and so I have a pretty wacky lineup here. Of course, Blademaster himself has a GB2. If you have more rearguards than your opponent during your turn, gain 5k in a crit, and when you stride over him, count +1 to retire an opponent's rearguard, so it kills intercepts, which is pretty cool. I run Overlord as the one of, because you have a lot of CC in this deck. Like, this is Soul Blast 2, Countercharge 2. This guy is when you retire an opponent's rearguard by your card effect, put this into the Soul, Countercharge 2. Like, we have so much Countercharge in Kagero now. The PG is also Countercharge, like, it's pretty intense. Then I play 2 of the Twilight Arrow Dragon. This card is okay. GB1 when it attacks the Vanguard, if it's boosted, count +1, retire opponent's grade 2 or below. Like, you usually will be attacking into the rearguard with this, and you'll usually, like, your opponent won't have grade 2s when you use this, so it's like you'll be popping back row. So it's just as a 2F because I don't really have much better. Like, play more Neo Flames, I guess, because it's a generic back row pop. I play Striken, which going first is pretty nice to get the extra crit, but going second, like, you don't want to ride this, because when you stride, like, if you give 5k power and a crit to the thing you ride over, if you stride over it, the power and crit fades, like, it just fades out, so that's obviously not good. So I feel like the best grade 2 is basically like this grade 2, which is like, it's an 8k, but it has a GB1 effect, which says when your opponent's rearguard is retired, gain 5k power. So of course this deck retires a lot, like Blademaster retires 1 when you stride, and then we have Mr. Mustafa, who says count +1, flip a unit face up, retire an opponent's rearguard, and then if you have, for every face up Mustafa in your G-Zone, choose one of your units and give it the skill that when it hits a Vanguard, you countercharge 1. So that's obviously pretty nice, that procs that grade 2 even more. Root Flare is G Persona Blast on GB2 once per turn. You choose an opponent's rearguard and retire that whole column, so that's pop 2, so that grade 2 gets more powerful as well. And then we also have the Mahmoud, who is on hit Vanguard, retire an opponent's rearguard, so that also powers up the grade 2. So there's a lot of different ways to power up. Maybe you should be playing the power up grade 1s too, but for the time being, like, this is the list I'm experimenting with, but this is the deck I've played by far the least. And then finally we have the Cross. Of course, this was the #1 meta dominator in GB201 in the TCG. It does feel very strong in 0 as well, but it's a little bit difficult to, like, I guess, like build it in a way. So we only play the 4 heals, no crits here because it's not a Blademaster deck. Of course, the cross himself is a Legion with the End, and when you Legion, you search your deck for a copy of one of your Vanguards added to your hand, so either the cross or the End if you need the Persona Blast for the End. Otherwise, he says, at the end of the battle he attacked, if he did not hit, Counterblast 1 and Persona Blast, so you discard a copy of him to retire 2 of your opponent's rear guards. But you can also just search the Persona Blast to keep Legioning every turn and keep searching out Persona Blast for the End, because you have this guy, who I definitely should be playing at more copies, which lets you on call Soul Blast 2, countercharge 2. So you Soul Blast out the End and the cross, and you countercharge 2 right back so you can use the End once again. My grade 1 lineup is kind of the same though. I'm also running this guy, who is like when you retire by a card effect, put him to Soul, countercharge 2. You retire in the battle phase with the cross, so that's why I like him, because you get the countercharge 2 immediately and the in Soul after it's already boosted, so it's also pretty sick. For the grade 2s, it's literally like Kagero good stuff, so I don't even want to talk about it. Like, if you have tips on what grade 2s to play in the cross, please let me know, because this is the best I've come up with so far. Like, if you go second and you have 4 cards in drop, striking over the cross is really scary. Like, that is actually frightening. So I think for that reason it's kind of nice, but otherwise the G-Zone is the same as the Blademaster deck. I haven't played with this as much because I really enjoyed playing Gear Chronicle and Altmile, so yeah, that's basically day 1 decks, or day 3 decks I guess, for this set. They are very fun, G feels super nice to play, and as I said in the previous video, you can also, you know, just play old decks with the generic strides and the generic heals, and it'll still be super good. So yeah, that's basically it. Those are the day 1 decks that I wanted to take a look at for this first set. Of course, we'll be back with this next set too. And of course, we'll be doing deck and fights for all 4 of these decks throughout the month, so look forward to that as well. But anyway, if you liked the video, please do give it a like. If you like the content, please do subscribe. But otherwise, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.